And so we begin with part 5 of the MERLIN Chronicles. Now, in the book, I come to a section called Cross of Divine Fire. And this kind of goes off into some work that a group in Great Britain were doing, in Scotland actually, along with some of the people that were working with me at the time in San Antonio, Texas, where I lived. And they had gone over there to Great Britain. Well, one individual had from San Antonio, and her friend who was in Scotland met her. I believe that's the way it was. And they were all working together over there, and one person from the UK, I think. In any case, they were doing light work over there, and at least in part was being directed by Thoth through me. I'm not going to read all of this because, you know, it's kind of ancient history. Well, all of it's ancient history, isn't it? But what I mean is, it's not timely for what we're working with now, and understanding MERLIN as the entity and all of that. This is more work that was being done at that time. But there are little pieces of it that I would like to share with you. So that's what I'm going to do. So the Cross of Divine Fire, I'm going to really go into exactly what that is, because I think that's important for all of us now as well. The Cross of Divine Fire is a culture healing synergy given by Thoth in 1987 to our Foundations group, now known as the Isis Voyagers, to enact when they were at Stonehenge and Tor Hill in Great Britain. And also it leads to something in Scotland, so we're going to put it all together here. Thoth on the Cross of Divine Fire. It is an energy manifestation of the fourfold, eightfold patterning within the advanced logos of divine creative kinetics, the function of divine light being brought into lesser light or elemental energy. Such power is seen at its most destructive in nuclear fission. In a syntropic reversal of this process, divine creative kinetics occurs when divine light centers its eye within the perfect mean. The perfect mean is the absolute, that which is the center of all consciousness, space, and time. It is the divine eyes demonstrated in the eye of Horus. As the divine light is centered, it integrates with the laws of space and time, finding the commonality of all its integers and manifesting in radiant light energy, a conduit for release into the lower ethers. This light energy is the middle ground between divine logos and elemental creation. The Cross of Divine Fire is the actualization of this process. It is the battery or matrix for the integration of light and matter at its most radiant conquest of time, before the entropic fall of light into matter is complete. It is this divine fire that will be reawakened to realign the etheric axis of the planet and be the balance of power between dark and light as each strive to master the elements. Now, Thoth gave a picture of divine fire to the group to work with. And this isn't the ultimate picture. This isn't the true logos picture. This is one that allowed them to work with the elements and the cultural forms that were needing balance at this time in 1987. So that's why I was struggling to say it was dated, because it was working with that time period. In your reenactment or your enactment of the Cross of Divine Fire, you will set the first blueprint for future awakeners. You will establish a bonding in the ethers with this energy pattern, which will at once begin to send signals for future alignments out into the planetary ethers. So that certainly correlates with us now for future alignments. It will be accomplished as follows. 4 women will assume the negative poles, 4 men the positive poles. Since at this time you have only 3 women and 1 man, the absent positions will have to be filled with etheric doubles, which will be provided if those positions are not filled physically by that time. Let's see if I want to continue here. So I skipped just a little about which persons go where and all of that. Remember, this book, the scanned version of this book is in the Vault of Thoth in the portal. Okay, so I'm going to skip over and start reading here. While the energy and presence of Merlin will be with you throughout, and his etheric double will be present in the center of the cross of divine fire, Petrus, the most regent of Celtic priests, who was also a Greek Christian Orthodox priest, will be your constant guide. Petrus was of Greek Celtic origin. He was an ordained priest, but also secretly a Celtic druid, priest of the highest order. He was contemporary with Merlin, knowing and working in tandem with him after Petrus's flight from persecution by the Christian church. It was then that he became a concealed monk at Glastonbury. Petrus was a later incarnation of Joseph of Arimathea. Now, Thoth Merlin's message ends with, may the divine fire kindle within thy hearts and minds a burnishing flame everlasting. Out of the depths of the molten sea, thy eternal garment is made. Let it be thy companion, thy shield, for ye art many among the one, at one. Amen. The Isis voyagers returned from their experience in Great Britain, having accomplished those things which Thoth had assigned to them. Home again, Thoth responded with the following message. As we approach the marking of the sacred calendar, the harmonic convergence of August 16th, 17th, 1987, the many shards of the one crystal are being brought together to turn as keys in ancient locks. So it has been with the Merlin Circle, this particular grouping of the Isis voyagers, in their journey through the vaults of time. Lead has been consumed by the flames of karma and wrought into cold. For each of you, time has been altered. You can never be contained in the timepiece that held you before, for you have integrated with the gear wheels of a clock whose midnight stroke is infinity. Even the cells in your body and the atoms whirling within are now singing a song of entrainment to this infinity clock. At this time, as the many lightning walkers, those who awakened the spirit centers, sent their rods into the earth, tapped the sources, so the messenger speakers, ancient spirits who impart energy and wisdom concerning the sacred land and the knowledge it contains, arise from their rumbling hills and inscribe the verse of wisdom upon the walkers to carry forth unto the seen and unseen, the knowing and unknowing among them. Now the sights are revealing their messages, yet not to eyes and ears. It is a message sent by the conductivity of the earth racing through the consciousness of the crystallic grid of the planet. It is being triggered by the lightning walkers as they touch the stone with mind and sound, uniting their song to the whale and the star. It is time for the coming of the Thunderbird People, those of the Blue Star Rigel, who in the beginning time set into certain points of the earth living geometrics of harmony, patterns of number and time and depth, time and Maya, all consciousness. The lightning walkers, of course, are still among us. And I could consider, I guess, myself a lightning walker. I don't do too much walking these days, but I have in the past. And, you know, I'm etherically walking and working with these thresholds here. So I could be one. And so could you, you know, working the sacred work with the earth and with the programs of light that are being placed within it would be a lightning walker. So to continue, after the Thunderbirds in the British Isles came the reindeer people who set up the stones and called the giants to inhabit them. These beings in the stone are the great spirit logos. They are a form of power much like Kachinas. The difference being that they are not creators, as are the Kachinas, but guardians, sustainers, and regenerators of life and earth forces, and of the sun-moon power as it cohabits with the earth. In the age when the reindeer people worked with the stones in Britain, the lion people in Egypt erected their greatest structures, also having been originally seeded and blueprinted by the Thunderbird people. And, you know, Thoth is calling the lion people, Thunderbird people, and all of this. For all I know, and I suspect, they didn't call each other that. Maybe they had, maybe some of these had a totem that represented that, maybe not. But Thoth he's speaking in his mythic form now. He's using his allegorical language, his symbolic language, to give us a sense of commonality with our understanding in symbolic forms. To continue, in South and Central America, the master builders were known as the Jaguar people. Okay, now here he's saying the master builders were known as the Jaguar people. So that would indicate that they really were known as the Jaguar people. And I have an asterisk by that, and I go down to where this, it says a later cult took the name Jaguar, not of the same heritage, and debased humanity through human sacrifice. So he's not talking about the same ones. In North America and Canada, they were the white buffalo people. All these people together, and others not mentioned here, formed the spirit totem, similar to the grand totem of the Central Earth tribes. They were direct, undiluted descendants of the three governing star families, Orion, the Pleiades, and the star Sirius. They were colonized in the Central Earth and came to the surface for their specific purpose as master builders, again returning when their service was completed. They sometimes mixed with surface races before they departed, creating a link between upper and lower realms. So it was with the first clan of the totem, the Thunderbird people. Okay, I'm beginning to see how this runs. And in the inner earth, they would refer to these people as such. The white buffalo people, the Thunderbird people, the Jaguar people, they are seeing them as an extension of themselves. So in that context, they would be referred to as such, not just in Thoth allegory, but in this kind of relationship. To continue, they, as blue star Solarians, have guided those clans that came after them in the raising of the stones and mounds upon the earth, upon the grids of the logos set into these sacred regions by them eons ago. I, Thoth, who erected the great temple of the lion, also known as the Temple of the Risen One, Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, followed the blueprinting of the Thunderbird people, among whom my soul was incarnated in that first age. As one among the reindeer people, I erected Stonehenge and again quickened it to fire when I embodied as Merlin. He didn't erect it as Merlin, he fired it up again as Merlin. But according to him, as one of the reindeer people, he did erect Stonehenge. So that's interesting. You know, I've never even explored that. Okay, we are always with you, as we have been in every cycle of mankind on this planet. Merlin's Circle, this little group of people that we were doing work, we called ourselves as we were doing this work, triggered major alignments within the complex grid system running through the British Isles. Much of this was in preparation for the release of Merlin's body soul and his suspended body held within the crystal cave on the Isle of Man. Aha! So Merlin was released. See, I don't remember all of this. It's just too long ago, and I have received and written too much material through all of this. And you can probably tell I'm not too tightly wrapped at times. So let's look at this again. This release will occur on August 16th, 1987. So it happened that long ago. Body and soul will be conjoined on August 17th. While I shall maintain my former identities, those Hermes, I will be overlaid with the newly reactivated Merlin as well, as each to their own degree will be the other souls of Merlin. Now that is really, really fascinating, and I would like to go into that more. Not now, but I'm going to circle that, so to speak, as something to look at. And if I get any really interesting information, of course, I will share it. Past, present, and future are now Maya, as the watershed of time is being opened. It will flood the ramparts of every outpost in light and gather upon the wave and armada of victory. And then Thoth, quoting the Archangel Michael, I have been victory for 10,000 years, so you shall be victory. Now that quote, that I received in 1974, probably, or 5. And I didn't know what the heck it was about. I didn't even know Archangel Michael said it. And in the passing of a few weeks, I realized it was from Archangel Michael, or through that vortex of energy, shall we say. And this led me to a whole series of events. Not going into it here, but I will just say that it was very powerful. And you'd think, well, 10,000 years, that's not much time for an archangel, right? But this had to do with a very specific, it was almost like a magical mantra. I have been victory for 10,000 years, so you shall be victory. So that's a whole other story, but I just wanted to mention that here. Okay, now I have a question to him, and I say, what connection does the release of Merlin's body, soul, and body have with the Zapotec prophecy that one of the incarnations of Quetzalcoatl, whom I understand is one of your incarnations, to Thoth I'm saying this, is buried at the El Tul tree near Oaxaca, Mexico, and that on August 17th, 1987, quote, and I'm quoting this source, as the first rays of the dawning sun of the new cycle sink into the depths of the heart of the earth, billions of tiny spirits will burst from the heart of Quetzalcoatl. They will slowly rise through the trunk, through the limbs and branches, appearing as sparkles of light, finally erupting every leaf and seedling, to circle the globe, each spirit to implant itself within the heart of a human being and plant a crystal of peace and love. And this quotation is from a newsletter channeling which I received in the mail, not sure of source, but may have been Jim Barinholtz. So I'm asking him this question, and he replies, excuse me, I'm turning a page again, really loud, I know. Okay, and he replies, so the body soul of Merlin is inbreathed into its suspended body. The energy engram inscribed upon the heart chakra of Quetzalcoatl will outbreathe upon the planet. The heart chakra of Merlin is the same energy as the incarnation of Quetzalcoatl, now interred beneath the Tul tree. Over the area of the crystal cave in which Merlin is suspended, there once physically grew a yew tree. Although it no longer stands, its spirit form remains as guardian of Merlin's heart chakra, still alive beneath the roots of the spirit tree. It is these roots of the Tul and the yew that keep the two heart chakras alive. And now the question is to Thoth. I'm posing this question. In connecting the constellation of Orion with the upcoming harmonic convergence of this August, Jim Barinholtz writes, and this is quoting Jim, the belt of Orion together with Big Betelgeuse and Rigel will be seen as the silver cross, the cross of Quetzalcoatl, the cross of peace and redemption, which according to the prophecy returns from the east. This cross in Orion is also the hull of the celestial ark, ARC, when viewed from above. The ark is there for us to fill with our prayers for life, that it may carry us home to the new world awaiting, unquote. Now I'm asking, is this silver cross, the cross of Quetzalcoatl, in spiritual dynamics the same as the cross of divine fire given to us to be performed by Merlin's circle at Stonehenge and Glastonbury Tor? And Thoth replies, it is so. It is the cross of the divine pathing, the release from karma that brings the exiled to the sacred roads in the center of convergence, the seat of the siege perilous. So I'm still not sure what happened to this Merlin. Is he still lying there with his soul, with some change in his being, the soul integrated, or has he got up and left? I don't know, but I will find out. But right now I'm just saying, I don't know. Okay, so the next question. Did Jesus have a son by Mary Magdalene? Of course, we all know this, but we're going to go back to it here. So Jesus lived a life of celibacy as was intended in the divine plan for him. After his death and before his ascension, he implanted his seed within Mary of Magdalene by immaculate conception. From this active spirit, Mary bore the son of the sun, John Martinez, on the Isle of Iona. The one chosen as her surrogate companion was Martinez Apollos, a Greek disciple of Christ. There was a close bond between Mary and Apollos, and thus she gave to her son his name as second to the name given by the Master for this child, when he appeared to her after the conception. John Martinez was canonized in the Celtic Church, founded in 4 BC, and lived a full life of service. He was buried at Glastonbury beneath the eaves of the wren. Let me say that again. The eaves of the wrens, plural all the way around. And then the next question: why was John Martinez born? Thoth, to preserve as an anchor for certain Christ energies that were being diffused on the planet for the period of time beginning with the crucifixion and ending with the death of John Martinez. This diffusion was brought about by the separation of the divine elements of particles of infused original light composing an extra light body, which was the Christ mantle inlaid upon the soul of the master initiate Yeshua, can't say it, Yeshua ben Joseph. After the body of Jesus Christ was crucified, this light shield body began to come apart. Its divine elementals separating, and much like the spirit seeds of Quetzalcoatl's heart chakra, entered the etheric body of the earth in many different aspects of its design. The soul of John Martinez, son of the sun, acted as a contact or anchor to enable these divine elementals in the fragile process of separation to retain their individual structure of infused original light until the process of separation was completed. I would say, of course, that there was much more to John Martinez's life than that, although that's pretty important. You know, there were other aspects of his life that were important for the whole plan, including the beginning of the actual Templars. Obviously, John Martinez did not call himself a Templar. That the Templar order was established long after that. But as I've stated in other videos and written work, the reason Thoth called him the first Templar is because out of his generation and out of his light program came the actual Templar order in a future time. So now back to the book. I say the preceding interview with Thoth was given in 1987. In future years, because this book was compiled of material out of 1987, but I actually put it together probably in 1994 or something. So I'm sorry, all these different time periods coming together here. So I'm saying in future years, he has discussed John Martinez more fully, speaking about his role as the first Templar, his nurturing by the Ionian priestess Elaine at Glastonbury, and his body, which is buried under the eaves of the wrens, as being in a suspended state. Thoth reveals that when Jesus Christ returns, or rather we as a world ascend to his vibration, he will release John Martinez from his suspended state. So that would say that we could say in the new earth he will be released, or the time of LP40, but it might be sooner than that. It might be as everything is received into the pyramid's radius matrix, because at that time, I believe we will begin to have certain contacts with the actual Yeshua, Jesus, whatever you want to call him, being. But that is on a belief spectrum. I have not received confirmation of that. I'm just saying it's possible. But in any case, when we leave this particular stage that we're in, and either we go, you know, it may be within the pyramidus radius matrix, or in the new Earth star, this release will take place, which would indicate to me that John Martinez's role is not complete, not fulfilled, or he wouldn't still be in a suspended state and be released at that propitious time. Okay, that was a lot of words to say very little. I apologize for that. That's Maya speak. Okay, here we go. So I'm still reading. I was puzzled in the Merlin information given to me by Thoth that two Greeks, Petrus and Martinez Apollos, played such an important roles in the Celtic Druidic mysteries. Then I came across the following passage in Corinne Helene's Mysteries of the Holy Grail. And this is a quote from that. This early Greek-speaking British Christianity was on the friendliest footing with the native Druidism, through the mediation of the free Greek spirit, which had already found haven in what was the far west of the day. That was when Joseph of Arimathea came to Glastonbury to establish the church there. That's what I'm saying in parentheses. It had been said that the Druids, lacking a written language, first began to write down their doctrines in the Greek characters, and it is understandable that the Druids should have taken up the Greek language, which was then the universal mode of communication. There were Greek universities in Gaul. Now, I put in parentheses, from whence the family of Gallatin originated. And we continue with the quote, and Marseille itself was a university town, strongly pervaded by the Greek spirit. And the legend is well known that a Pythagorean teacher once taught Orphism to the Druids. And I'm saying the Merith Galahad soul was previously incarnated as Orpheus, and in another life, an initiate under Pythagoras. So, it all kind of comes together. Okay, next part here. Bannock Hills, as previously mentioned, well, I don't think I read the part where it was mentioned, but the Scottish group went and worked with the whole Bannock Hills thing at the time, was the name given by Thoth Merlin as the location of one of Merlin's major sacred groves. Thoth had said it was in Scotland, and when topography maps were combined with the Scottish group of Merlin's circle, a Bannock Hill was located. Now, when I received that, I didn't know that, but they did find it on the map. There were several other hills around this one with other names. Thus, could be presumed that long ago, all these hills could have been had the one name, instead of Bannock Hill, Bannock Hills. David Thorpe, one of the group then living in Scotland, he now resides in London, well, did in 1987 or whenever, took an excursion with his son Michael to Bannock Hill, writing to me the following account of his experience there. So I'm not going to read all of this again. You can find this in the manuscript, but David does say here, I lay on the stone with my head to the east, lengthwise, and almost immediately felt the stone wanting to be upright in the form of a kind of seat or throne. From the throne, which was at the end of a wooded clearing, I could see over the surrounding valley and sense similar clearings or groves of the adjacent hills. And that's what David said. And I'm saying, I was struck by David's remarks about the stone, that it should be uprighted. For in a message from the Thoth Merlin, he told of three brothers, Amadine, Quenur, and Olmas, first cousins of Merdin. Merdin now is the grandson of Merlin. Isn't that right? Hold on. We have to keep these things straight, don't we? Let me find the family tree here. Oh goodness, where is it? I thought it would be right here. Family tree. Aha, here we are. And we have, Okay, I'm going to keep looking. Just hold on a moment. I'm going to put it on pause so I can find this. Okay, that's correct. It would be Merlin or Merdin's cousins. I lost my other place. Okay, yes, it would be not cousins, brothers. Oh my goodness. Okay. Thoth Merlin, he told of three brothers, Amadine, Quennur, and Olmas, first cousins of Merlin. Yes, first cousins of Merlin. That's Merlin. So Merlin's first cousins. Quote, together they wrought great power for which a price was paid, yet despite failings, they were workers of the light who will continue diligently until the stone which they tilted is once again in place. So I don't know why that didn't appear in the other text. I don't remember it being there. But in any case, this was a quotation from Thoth about these brothers who were first cousins of our Merlin. And I'm wondering if this is the stone they tilted. Okay, after reading about the stone on Bannock Hill in David Thorpe's letter, I inquired of Thoth in the Merlin context if the horizontal stone atop Bannock Hill was indeed the very stone mentioned in his message. I was told that it was. Of the three Gallatin brothers who tilted the stone and who are all known to me in this age, I don't know who they are now. One accepted the task of working with myself and David with his Scotland group in the healing of the stone, or rather the PowerPoint for which the stone is a focusing element. One of these three men, whom I wrote about the stone, never replied and died shortly afterward tragically in a fire. As you will read further, okay, so I know who that is. As you will read further on, fire was what killed him when he tampered with the stone in the Gallatin lifetime, information I received before his present life death. These were all very good people, very spiritual people. You know, it's not just the bad guys that create unfortunate situations that they have to come back and redress. The last of the three denied that he had been involved in such a lifetime or event. I'm surprised that I actually even approached someone about that, but I guess I was guided to do so. Okay, turn page. Because I usually do not do that, is what I'm saying. The PowerPoint of the Bannock Hill stone, which had been damaged, is one of the several on the planet through which the Ma, M-A, is anchored and projected into the center of the planet's central sonatoma. The Ma is the archetype for all crystal formation and structure on the planet. This includes the crystal grid of the sphere, the inner earth ice crystal canopy, and, in Merlin's age and before, the ice canopy of the outer world. Unfortunately, the power of the Ma is sometimes tapped by the dark forces. This is one reason why we, in this age, are not in the advanced state we once were, and our earthen sphere no longer contains an outer ice canopy, causing glaciers to build steadily at the poles, threatening to topple our planet. The Gallatin brothers, however, were not dark forces, but simply overzealous initiates of the light, who became so obsessed with their plan to better the world they could not see its serious flaws, even when these were strongly pointed out to them by the master wizard Merlin. In other words, I don't know that I put that sentence too well, maybe I didn't read it too well, but you know, they had a plan. They were going to do this for the world, for the planet, for God, whatever. And Merlin said, I don't think that's a good idea. And they said, oh, no, everything will be fine. That's the bottom line. Okay. Before I relate the story of the Gallatins and their tilting of the Bannock Hill stone, more information on the stone in the present needs to be given. Since the stone weighs approximately 4 tons, lifting it into place was decidedly out of the question. Although David and his Scotland group did try levitation on it, they were not successful. Thoth Merlin instructed us to work on healing the PowerPoint within lifting the stone itself. There were 2 similar stones in the area, forming a near triangle with the larger stone. These 2 lesser stones were lifted erect by David and his hardy bunch. They felt at once that a flow of telluric energy had been reopened, although the larger stone PowerPoint still needed work. I was then instructed by Thoth Merlin to inform David that a circle of 7 crystals be buried at specific points about the 3 stones. From David's letter to me relating the setting of these crystals at Bannock Hill, he writes, "The ceremony around the stone was very moving, during which the 12 of us joined hands and toned Ma for about 5 minutes. At one point, a perfect chord was struck, and the stone reactivated. The perfect white obelisk formed standing out brilliantly against the night sky. Since that time, the true chameleon nature of the stone has revealed itself to me, appearing variously as red, blue, green, white, green, etc. I've also had another encounter with Enoch, who explained to me the obelisk form as the perfected form of the cross, where the horizontal bar, as the crucifixion of man within matter, is transformed vertically as a direct link with the pyramidical termination, as a symbol of the light vector mechanisms by which intelligent life waves are developed and sanctified. Since my first contact with the Orion Ma energies, the golden pyramid of light described previously has intensified, and only this morning I spent time cloning it around the borders of the region we've been given to work with." And that was David, from David's letter, David Thorpe, and that's the end of quotes there. All right, so now I'm going back to me in my book here. The aforementioned established, Thoth Merlin informed me of the next action that was to be taken. On the map of Scotland, I was shown a location not far from Bannock Hill, presently named Devil's Elbow. I was instructed to give the following information to David. We need to consider, when working to realign Bannock Hill, that the original imbalance was due to an attempt to divert some of the energy of the Ma to another site. Thus, this location is still drawing off some of the energy, although the entire diversion was not successful. This separate area, Thoth Merlin tells me, is the same, up, page turn here, latitude as Bannock Hill. It is in the region identified on the map of Scotland as Devil's Elbow. This area has quite a karmic buildup, sufficient, no doubt, to acquire that name. The original purpose of the 3 Gallatin Brothers was to clear out that point and redirect the Ma focus through it. This combination, they supposed, would be a pure power source. They supposed wrongly. Their error was that, as MERLIN had warned them, the Devil's Elbow, then known as the Dark Moon's Cup, was a touch point for the Luciferian coil, that Kundalini-like passage of ground energy with no opposite pole. Enough black arts had been practiced in this region by dark moon wizards to effectively bend the refractive ethers into a one-pole symmetry. Messing with the Luciferian coil is a quick way to get into bad trouble. That's what happened to the well-meaning but rash brothers when they tried to divert the Ma to the Dark Moon's Cup. When the complete circuit of the Ma touched the dead-end pole of the coil, the 3 brothers were electrocuted. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't laugh, but that's a fast karmic output. Interestingly, Olmos was the only one who lived through the experience. The other 2 died instantly. It is the soul that was Olmos who chose in this life to accept the healing of the stone. I wish I could remember who Olmos was. Okay, to redirect Bannock Hill's Ma focus and disengage it from Devil's Elbow without coming into contact with the Luciferian coil, Thoth Merlin gave the following instruction. David, the elected guardian of the grove of the Amethyst Dragon, Bannock Hill, was to walk the path of the Dark Moon's Cup. Okay, as relayed in my letter to David, Thoth Merlin states that there is no danger for you in walking the path so long as you do not attempt to tamper with the energy there. You simply pick up the path you are to walk. You place yourself in the midst of the fourfold pillar, period, the fourfold pillar. These are archetypal energy beings, place energy beings of protection and centering. You may see these beings in any form you choose that arises from your spirit totem. Place one in front, one in back, to your right, and to your left. These are incorporated as the guardians of the throne, north, south, east, and west. As you walk the path, you silently invoke the Christos flame of white diamond light as a flaming vanguard before you. This will allow the grace factor to penetrate the bent shield, but the Luciferian coil will not be disturbed. You are able to remain neutral with only the above procedure to accomplish. You will be guided in the pathing. Take long and even strides at a brisk pace. You are to go alone, as others would scatter your energy. The idea is to be single-minded in laying down the fire path as a man on a roof nailing shingles one by one. I said I wasn't going to read a whole lot of this, but because it was in the past, but apparently I'm supposed to be reading it. I have a feeling it's going to be something connecting to our present workings. So let's take a look at the Ma for a moment before we continue with the trip to Devil's Elbow, which is continued here. The Ma directs and gives form in etheric mold to crystalline structure before it aligns to physical conformity in the earth. The Ma is a tone, for it is resonance that brings forth pattern. All elements, even those that do not contain crystal lattices, rely on the crystalline geoharmonics to give them order and direction. Excuse me. For computer-oriented minds, and this is back in 1987, for computer-oriented minds, consider the Ma as a path name to the elemental sequences before they are printed into the physical world. The Ma is a tuning fork for our own crystal resonance, much like physical crystals do for us, only the grand archetype of crystals is the ultimate power wand. The Ma directive quality, which is physical reality, would be its shape. Let me start that over again. The Ma's directive quality, which in physical reality would be its shape, is obelisk. By chanting Ma, the ancients would attune themselves to the archetype. From this etheric element, they could then enter the codes of the light flow through the planetary grid. With these codes, the initiated could manifest objects into physical form, transmute elements, alchemy, heal physical bodies, and accelerate brain function. These are only some of the qualities and resources of Ma that the Ma contains. I think I'm going to start chanting Ma a lot. Okay, let's see what we have next here. So then we have a summary of the key events of the trip to Devil's Elbow. And I really think we should go through this. So here we go. This is by David Thorpe. First light anchor at Gloomy Water on outside of Braemar. Envelope of orange yellow flame placed around my being. Drove 10 miles to Standing Stone at Spittal of Glenshee, linked with column protective of 4, with Christ light in front and Enoch above. Drove 5 miles towards Devil's Elbow, instructed not to touch anything or pick up any souvenirs. Strong pull to valley hidden east of main road, Bannock Hill direction. Walked up onto spur. View of cup number 1, a quarry to one side of a steep valley covered in loose scree. Christ light penetrating under concave ether field. Directed not to linger too long on this spot. Continued to walk up spur, feeling of strong tension, like a coiled up spring underground. Told to stop halfway up spur and direct. Oh, oops. I'm sorry. The wind blew the door closed. At least we hope it's the wind. I'm going to have to leave this in here. To edit it out would take a long, long time. So I hope everybody didn't jump out of their chairs like I did. Oh, we're on Devil's Elbow after all. Okay, let's try this again. Be still, my heart. Let's see, where was I? told to stop halfway up spur and direct Christ light, diamond white, to both left and right of spur. Formation of a diamond light cutting between the two cups, second having appeared to the left. Lots of energy, as an overlighting pyramid in gold appeared about 50 feet above the ground. A black cube came into focus underground below the second cup. Pyramid did not ground during the visit and still appears to hover above the ground level. Regular breathing rhythm sensed at Bannock Hill, signifying a newfound freedom. Indeed, the power leak seems to be weakening. Completed walk up spur and down to road near car, so hitched a lift for the last half mile. Now, post-visit experience. Highly creative dynamic of light forms appearing from Bannock Hill. The place seems to be literally spraying out geometric light forms, everywhere from stars to cubes, pyramids, spirals, the whole works. Lines of power leak seem almost gone. It feels as though any remaining work will be undertaken by interplane agencies. The Ma now tones to the whole range of notes. My guidance indicates that these differences correspond to the different planes through which the energy penetrates. Also, that a different note may be detected or sounded by each adept according to his/her current need or purpose. Like he's giving an example, ma or ma or ma or ma, etc. Of course, mine sounds kind of funny, but you get the idea. Danielle, David's wife, also picked up on the black cube. One is reminded of the black cube of Mecca, referred to in the Enochian Mysteries. The threads of energy emitting from it appeared to her in a tangled web of gray mist. Definitely not something to be messed with. Devil's Elbow used to be a very tight hairpin bend at about 2,500 feet, ABSL, in the middle of a desolate area of the mountains, one lane wide. The road used to be closed all winter and was a notorious accident spot. The old bend still exists to the side of the new road. They wouldn't let me stay there long, but I did notice that the elbow pointed directly to cup number 2, major center and location of black cube. All right, so that's David's report. Now we go back to me and Thoth. Thoth tells me that the Ma is being programmed to rebuild the crystal ice canopy about the planet in the not too distant future, according to their perspective. This would greatly aid in rebalancing the planet. The ice crystals at the poles would be transferred into the canopy, alleviating the strain at polar regions. How long this reprogramming will take, I've not been informed. The healing of its anchor node at Bannock Hill will serve to better track its full spectrum into the central Sunatoma. Wow, now this is very exciting to me because not remembering this a few years ago, and I've reinstated it since then, I was told that the ice canopy was being recreated. And I said, why? I mean, if we're all going to the new Earth, why bother? You know, this is the old world, it's going to go. Why bother creating this? And he said, it's very important for the whole transition. You know, take his word for it. This is a part of the whole picture. We have to rebuild some of the planetary parts that are missing and regenerate them, not all of them, but some of them, in order to have the jump start to move through this process. And even within the pyramidus radius, a lot of this recreating is going to be done. That's what it's for. Oh, well, one of the things it's for. So now I go back and read this, and here it says it again. Okay, so next, in another passage, Thoth Merlin is addressing the source and function of a particular crystal, now in the possession of David Thorpe. This goes on to that particular crystal and whatever, and I'm really going to skip that. It was more personal, well, not personal, but information regarding a crystal he possesses. So it's not really relevant to where we're going here, but there is more. Let me see what, we're coming to the end though. Now in the book, I doubled back and put some of the black rose material in here. And since I've already done the Black Rose series, you will have it in that. So I'm skipping that. And then there's some little Thothic definitions here. Ark of the Covenant. Okay, now what that is the sacred Ankh, the one that's here in etherically contained within the crest and the stone, in overlooking Crestone, Colorado, in the San Luis Valley. It says, and this is from source issue 486. Generator to maintain certain holographs of the knowledge form from the center of the earth as projected throughout the world sphere. Oops. Okay, there we are. Now, Sword Excalibur. Mastery, empowerment to the one who bonds with its mind or programming, serves as a functional tool of assimilation and direction within atomic particles, can perform physical direction of matter for specific light-coded works programmed within it eons ago by the Blue Star Master Builders. This programming can and does change through time. Author, in his final days, misused the sword, not purposely, but in ignorance of its true design. This ignorance was a result of his inability to accept feminine vibration within himself, and therefore receive initiation through the order of the waking grace. Had he accepted this allegiance, he would have had the knowledge required to bond with the sword completely, and Guinevere would not have sought Lancelot as a channel to open the masculine heart chakra to the goddess element within. The Grail Cup, a receptacle that is threefold. It is an object that was fashioned to hold the clay cup of Christ's Last Supper. It is also the cup inside the sun-moon Ankh, which contains the Archangel Stone. The alchemical mix of these two cups comes from the meteor shards. The third grail is a living code, which is contained within the third shard of the meteor, the Archangel Stone. On the level of the grail vibration, this code is able to duplicate itself throughout humanity. It is the code of the very Christ itself. And of course, we see this code within what Thoth is calling the Grail Logos. Perhaps it is the code embodied in a form that is palatable to direct transmission into the earth. I say perhaps it is, according to Thoth, as I'm receiving right now. And that has now been redirected from its containment field within Utenberg to Mount Blanc, where there is much more to come. Archangel Stone, a powerful charge contained within a physical crystal. Its etheric body is called a Hilarion crystal. Information on the Hilarion crystals are given in the Star Lotus Manual, of which I do not have anymore, cannot find anymore. However, I do believe most of it, if not all of it, is in the Grail issue 1999 of Temple Doors. 1998, I'm sorry, the special Grail issue 1998 of Temple Doors. And I already, I believe, in my Grail series, went through that, spoke about that, read about that. The charge of the Archangel crystal is the power of Adam. It is infused in a divine state of transfiguration. It is the power of Christ as a mighty thunder and can be translated into a physical energy beyond belief. It is the path to connection with the divine mind. In conclusion now, in the book, my book, I go to the Glastonbury Zodiac. It's not very long, and I would like to include it as the conclusion. In 1990, I came across a book entitled The Glastonbury Zodiac, Key to the Mysteries of Britain by Mary Caine, that's C-A-I-N-E. Her book, unfortunately, is out of print. You can get it for a small fortune on Amazon. This text was to startlingly confirm many aspects of Merlin's story, which the Thoth Merlin entity had related to me. At the time, the basics of this chronicle was given to me by Thoth. I was ignorant as to these legends, myths, or historical fact that was given here in the Glastonbury Zodiac book, which I had not read at the time. In the Glastonbury Zodiac, as is stated, it is stated that Templars, their astrological mysteries expressed by the zodiac, owned much land in Somerset. Glastonbury, where Thoth Merlin had revealed Jesus and Mary Magdalene's son, was taken for his initiations in the Somerset. Thoth calls this son John Martinez, the first Templar. Well, of course, it has even more significance now since as of last year, I became a Templar of the true Templar order that has been revivified in this 21st century, and have my own Priory of the White Stone. So it's even more, to me, relevant to my work. I had been aware, previous to reading the Glastonbury Zodiac, that Joseph of Arimathea, according to legend, had visited Glastonbury, founding the first church there, and that on this journey he brought his young nephew, Joshua ben Joseph, with him. Later, Jesus would return as a young man. Joseph came once again to the shores of the Crystal Isle, for in that age Glastonbury was surrounded by an inland sea. With the three Marys, Mother of Christ, or Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and Mary Martha. Thoth had confirmed the truth of these legends for me. Now, Glastonbury Zodiac fleshed in more correlations with what Thoth Merlin had told me in 1987. In this book, Mary Kane states that possibly Joseph came to Glastonbury, quote, urged to by the astrological Essenes of Qumran, who are thought to have taught his cousin John the Baptist to study at this famous Druid university, unquote. Purportedly to have been located at Glastonbury. Ms. Kane further reveals that Cornishmen insist Joseph of Arimathea had married into the Silurian British royal family of Caradoc and Arvanagus. Legends tell that he rescued a British princess, Anna, who was found wandering pregnant, having been turned out of her home. Joseph took her to Palestine and married her to his brother Joachim. This British princess gave birth to a daughter who was to become the mother of Jesus. She mentions that Jesus is usually depicted as auburn-haired. Thoth has always described him with auburn hair, as has the sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce. Now, I just want to pause here a moment. Now the whole trend is to say, oh, well, Jesus was not as he was portrayed. He was, Jewish, Armenian, whatever. I'm not sure if Armenian is the right word, but, he was very dark and he had, very sort of thick features and this and this and that. Now, I am not at all opposed to him been that, if that was what he was. I mean, it's fine with me. He can look like anybody as far as I'm concerned. But technically speaking, according to Thoth, according to Edgar Cayce, and according to many biblical references, actually, they're not in the Bible, I don't think, but they are references. I'm sorry, not biblical, historical references during the time that Jesus was to have lived. Tell of him as looking that way, as looking like Edgar Cayce describes, like Thoth describes. And the reason for that is that while he was Jewish, he was Hebrew, he was of the Celtic Hebrews. And historically, again, if you look between the lines and you look to really ancient texts, you can find that they state that Jesus was a Celtic Jew. And his family, according to Thoth, and according to some of the texts of the past as well, I might add, originated in Scotland. And that's where we come to Barry Dunford's marvelous works, the primary one being The Holy Land of Scotland, that talks about this, that addresses it historically. So Jesus's features and racial type came out of the Celtic, red-haired, auburn-haired, lighter-skinned personages. Of course, walking around in the Middle Eastern sun for so many years, I imagine he was deeply tanned by then. But the point is, he was from that lineage. And so he would have had the auburn hair and the blue eyes. Again, it's not a big deal. He could have been black, he could have been Asian, he could have been anything, and he would have still been Jesus, and carrying the Christ. He didn't have to be any particular race to do that. But it so happened, and I imagine that from the cosmic view, everything falls into place as it should, that, he was from this Celtic family. He needed to be from the Celtic family, Thoth is informing me right now, not because of the racial type, but because of the lineage that took him back into the consciousness spectrum that had been generating through the house of David and through this lineage. So it came out of the Hibernian mysteries from Hibernia, which came out of Atlantis. So he had to come through that particular lineage to bring through this consciousness spectrum into the incarnational realm we're speaking of here, of course. Okay, so we continue with what I'm saying about this Glastonbury Zodiac book. In another passage of the Glastonbury Zodiac, I found a possible reference to John Martinez when Mary Kane writes, "I was delighted beyond words to hear that a royal child was supposed to have been hidden here long ago. It is not clear to me who Mrs. Kane thinks this royal child might have been." In still another passage, mention is made of St. Patrick having been at Glastonbury. The miracle-working St. Bridget is said to have visited Glastonbury when St. Patrick was abbot there. Also mentioned is that St. Patrick was buried under a pyramid at Glastonbury in 472 AD. Glastonbury Zodiac discusses the Isle, the book, the Glastonbury Zodiac, discusses the Isle of Iona, where Thoth Merlin says were established the Ionian mysteries, and from whence came the priestess Elaine with her young charge, John Martinez, who had been born on the island. And this is the quote from Mary Kane's book. "Sun rays penetrate the ionized layers of the boundless atmosphere, plunging into the Ionian Sea to inspire its great philosophy school. Hibernians placated a sea god called Johnny, who is likely to predate a Christian Saint John," unquote. This statement was especially meaningful in light of John Martinez, a Hibernian by birth, and it is here that we find an interesting twist. Unaware of any John Martinez, Mary Kane comments on Saint John as having been so influential in Hibernian Celtic culture, quote, "that he has been supposed by some to be a Celt or Gaul from Galatia," unquote. Upon reading this, I asked Thoth my suspicion that John Martinez and St. John, the Beloved, although two separate people, might have been amalgamated in legend as one persona, and from this amalgam arose what Mary Kane refers to as Johannine Christianity. Thoth confirmed this, further stating that the soul of John Martinez previously incarnated as the soul of St. John. Okay, here we go with the soul business again, ring around the rosy. Thoth had told me later or before, I think it was later, that he was one of the layered souls of St. John. And he also told me that he was the soul of John Martinez. I believe it's the only soul. And I have in parentheses here an S because I don't know. I say soul in parentheses S of Martinez, previously incarnated as the soul in parentheses S of St. John. Because when I wrote this, I didn't know, is there more than one soul in this body or not? So anyway, we have a connection here between all these Johns and Merlin and Thoth. Mary Kane in the Glastonbury Zodiac quotes the bard wizard Taliesin, who Thoth Merlin tells me was an incarnation of the Merlin souls. From the sun's bow, I, arrow word speed down to, O, the world, the brain, my light shaft bent at, in, piercing dense element, I thread its maze till raised again, and A, my alpha source enlightenment. So that apparently is a quote from Taliesin. That some such message is buried in the letters of the word Iona is clear. This is Mary Kane. It is the same word as John, and the Johns of the New Testament are all manifestly heaven-sent messengers. Merlin or Merlin's name means from the sea, unquote. Another interesting Taliesin verse holds our attention. Johannes the diviner was I called, and Merlin Now every king shall call me Taliesin. Would this not imply that Taliesin, in addition to his later incarnation as Merlin, was also John Martinez, in which case he was at least in part John, the Apostle of Christ? In discussing Joseph of Arimathea's offspring, it is stated in the book Glastonbury Zodiac that he may have married into the British royal family of Bran or Bronze. Ban or Bran Galahad was a direct ancestor to Joseph on both his patriarchal and matriarchal lineages, according to Thoth Merlin. Mary Kane, in her Glastonbury Zodiac, also makes mention of a John of Glastonbury, who is apparently a chronicling monk predating Merlin's time. One might wonder how he fits into the incarnating puzzle of the sacred Johns. It is this John of Glastonbury. It is this John of Glastonbury who writes about Joseph and his son Joseph, who came to Greater Britain, which is now called England, and there finished life. And so this concludes my Merlin Chronicles video series. I do believe, however, there may be some parts here that were kindled from what I just read that I will include in another video that I will place into this series. Since I don't know yet, I can't confirm that, but it may be the case. So thank you all for listening. And of course, I apologize, as I usually do, for all my stuttering and my, formulations of mental conflagrations that are Maya speak, that are going on while I'm trying to, bring this into the light and hand it over to all of you. But, it's the best I can do. So I just keep doing it. Thank you all for listening.